Hello everyone, I hope you guys are doing well. This is a video I meant to make yesterday, however I actually was struck by a fever and I subsequently have injured some ribs and cartilage from exercising, and especially during the COVID era, having a fever and not feeling well is extremely unnerving and worrisome. Thankfully, I chugged water and I'm feeling a lot better. So, with that said, this video is coming out now. As for the subsequent videos in this series, they will come when they are ready. Now that I've kind of been pushed back a bit, I'm not going to be sticking necessarily to a strict timeline. But as you might be able to gain from the title of this video, this is going to be an introductory series into my fan-made elite specialization concepts for the third expansion for Guild Wars 2, which has been officially announced. Thank the lords! So it's a lot of fun and a really fun time for me to explore my own imagination. And that's part of video games. Dare to imagine, and don't necessarily be embarrassed to imagine. So for this introduction to the series, I'd like to make this video to go over some concepts I'd like to see for the next round of elite specializations in general. Additionally, this will mean that I'm going to be touching on my current feelings towards the elite specs that they have shipped with Heart of Thorns and Path of Fire. Of course, I have to touch on these to, build on to what I would like to see, what I would like to see them not do, and possible innovations. So let's begin with this little discussion. So first I'm going to talk about the elite specs that we have currently. With Heart of Thorns, I really loved their innovative take on gameplay. I feel like with this expansion, they were definitely developing different ways combat works in terms of new area of effect shapes. We saw a lot of roads, such with the Revenant, and new configurations. We saw chaining projectiles with the Revenant Mace, where a bolt of poison would launch out a little bit after you take your final swing. We saw the Dragon Hunter longbow chain to an additional enemy if they were nearby, and even more interestingly, if that person was hit, the first target hit was crippled. So I really loved that innovation in terms of the mechanics. It was very thought out, and they even went back on a couple ideas which I think would have been really interesting. This being with their original iteration of Malix. Malix's skills would put conditions on the Revenant player themselves, but their traits would also interact with that and help them in a sense. And I thought that was really cool, but sadly they moved away from it. Maybe for the best. I'm not too sure. But the concepts are cool. In addition to the actual gameplay, for the elite specialization traits in themselves, I found them to be very simplistic, especially when they were first being unveiled to us. They weren't muddied with like 4 different mechanics in a basic major trait. It was very simple, and especially for like the Dragon Hunter, it's like cripple a foe you disable, your Aegis 3, your F3 skill for Dragon Hunter, the shield now lasts longer and is wider. They were very niche traits that focused in on a certain thing, and even hell, for the Chronomancer rework that they did, one of their Grandmasters is gain alacrity when you slow a target. They're very simplistic but effective, and I really enjoyed that. Some things might not necessarily be effective, which I would like to see, tuned, as they always are doing tuning with balance, but the simplicity was an aspect I really admired. Now for the Path of Fire elite specs. I'm going to start out with my negative, and this is that I felt that the elite specializations that came with Path of Fire had too many large area of effect rings, and they were pretty much just massive rings with insane damage and a whole lot of condition damage across each elite specialization. I feel like they kind of were like, with Path of Fire, they were like, oh, a lot of classes don't, a lot of professions don't really have ample access to condition damage if they want to play that playstyle in, say, a raid, fractal, or PvP. So they just gave it to all of them. And it really hit the competitive scene specifically. Everyone started playing Scourges. Everyone was a Spellbreaker because they had Winds of Disenchantment, that large AoE that just ripped boons off of everyone. Firebrands, don't even get me started. So there was a lot of massive AoEs. I mean, hell, even Mesmer with their staff became a little bit of an issue. So yeah, I would say that was the one aspect that I was a bit more put off to. What I really liked with Path of Fire, however, was that they were much more refined in their focus and in their goal. For the Firebrand, it was very specifically, branded, no pun intended, but pun intended, if you know what I mean, as a support and condition damage build, or elite specialization. With the first wave, because there was only one batch of elite specializations, they were trying to kind of eat and tackle every aspect of how a player could play, such as the Herald, which is like condition damage and healing. It's a lot. Even in the rework, it's still kind of a lot. But with Path of Fire, I felt that they were much more focused. They were like, great, we already have one elite specialization that can, do a role very effectively. Now let's give them another role that they can do effectively. And I hope that with a third elite specialization, they, can provide us with a new way of playing that fulfills a role that maybe a profession hasn't been able to do as effectively as other professions. And I like to think that elite specializations do 1 to 2 things very well. Say as the Firebrand was healing and condition damage. The Chronomancer is boon support and damage. Necromancer is barrier application and condition damage, so on and so forth. So yeah. For this new wave of elite specializations, I want them to merge the 2 strong points of each expansion. I want them to innovate with the gameplay itself, play with height, play with gliding, maybe even aerial attacks and animations where you knock players up in like a tornado and they get slammed down to the ground. Such things that we've seen with the Whisper of Jormag, if you've played that strike mission when the icicle lifts you up, and then if you fall down onto it, you get even more damage. But you have the option of gliding. They could play with something like that. Play with break bars. Give players break bars. They were trying this with Heart of Thorns. They moved away from it. For what reason? I'm not sure. Think new AoE formations and more single target aspects. I don't want them to just do large, like 600 radius circles where you can place them all over the place and deal a lot of damage. I'm looking at you, Scourge. You really messed things up. And additionally, I want them to hone in on 1 or 2 roles that can be performed effectively. Take the Druid. The Druid, I think, was the only Heart of Thorns elite specialization that really focused in on the healing aspect. But, through some configuration, they could do damage. I'm just starting to think about Druid. I kind of want them to tweak Druid. I haven't played it in a while. That's besides the point. Keep in mind the balance has been finally... The balance as of late has been kind of solidified and very healthy. They've been tuning down numbers, they've been tweaking numbers, and of course, moving forward in this series, the numbers can of course be changed. The conditions can be changed. The amount of conditions can be changed. I mostly am doing this for the creativity of it all. And especially for PvP, it is very worrisome. And hell, even for PvE it is, because, one-shotting mobs is never fun. And even in raiding, there's always that one specialization that beats out all of them by a landslide. So it is always important to keep balance in the back of your mind. And also, is it fun to play? That should also be a thing. But yeah, in closing, I want there to be less oppressive AoEs and millions of conditions being bursted on you. With my elite specializations that I am presenting, there are some elite specs where I do have a large AoE circular attacks, or not necessarily attacks. The one change that I have is that they're large AoEs, however, they're more focused on supportive ways and healing, rather than just, bursting people with the ghastly breach. Also, as maybe just like a side note, I'd like them to innovate in maybe the ways of healing. Single target, healing lower health players, saving players from death, temporary resurrections from just the dead state, not the down state, but maybe from being dead as like an elite skill or something very niche. So that's kind of what I would like to see. I want them to push more and not just kind of rely on Path of Fire, which I kind of thought was kind of lazy, if I'm being honest. But then, of course, you look at the Weaver, and they were just like, let's give 100+ skills to the Elementalist. They might have gone a little overboard there, but it's proven out to be quite fun. I guess now I will give you guys a little bit of a hint and a showcase at the elite specs that I have currently. I have all 3 light armors done, but I do have all of the names for my elite specializations, and I have pretty much a general concept of what I want them to do and the general roles that I want them to fulfill. So I'm going to be giving you a showcase of the light armor, which will be the next video in this series that you're going to be seeing until we eventually hit medium and heavy. So for the Elementalist, I have the Mystic. Mesmer, I have the Enchanter, and for the Necromancer, I have the Lich Lord. As for the medium armors, I have the classic Hunter, the Thief. I've named the Shadowkeeper, the Engineer, the Constructor. And finally, for the heavy category, this is a, you guys are going to understand this. You guys have heard these names before. For the Warrior, I have the Paragon, the Guardian, I have the Monk, and the Revenant, I have the Ritualist. Once again, I have all light armor done. Medium and heavy I will be working on in due time. Of course, I have assignments and everything, and like, if I get sick again, life. But I'm going to be working on them in the background. And I hope that I can get my light armor video out soon for those of you who really enjoy hearing other people's elite specialization concepts. So thank you everyone for watching. This is my overview of what I think, or my overview opinion on the elite specializations that we have, and an introduction to my concepts for the 3rd wave of elite specializations. Thank you all so much for watching. Like the video if you liked it, comment down below maybe what you'd like to see or your thoughts about elite specializations, and subscribe for more videos, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye everyone!